Welcome back, minors. My name is Amber Johnston, and I'm a counselor at Student Wellbeing.
And I'm Nathan Asbell, also a counselor at Student Wellbeing. And, athletes, it's time for your morning cup of joe.
That was my best crowd impression.
I love it. It's perfect.
So this morning I want to talk to you about athletes and mental health. There's a strong stigma in the United States regarding mental health, and one of the places it's the most visible is in the field of athletics. Athletes are held to impossible standards, and we all sit on our couches eating our potato chips while we look at how athletes performs on the field, and we examine it through a magnifying glass, and we look for every little possible mistake.
Well, that's where the phrase armchair quarterback comes from.
Absolutely. The intense pressure of performing, as well as the superhuman expectations of athletes, have placed them at high risk for depression, anxiety, and substance use. Some of the most all-time famous athletes have faced these battles, and the battle of achieving the balance between their sport and real life. I want to talk to you today about some of their stories and the methods they use to try to manage their mental health.
Awesome. So who's first on your list?
The first one I have on my list is Michael Phelps. He has participated in 5 Olympic Games and won 23 gold medals.
That is impressive. I don't think anyone's ever won as many gold medals as he has, have they?
Simone Biles has, I believe, hasn't she?
Oh, wow.
In 2014, he was arrested for his second DUI.
Wow, I didn't know he was arrested for DUI.
Yeah, he was arrested for a second one. At the time, he was struggling with alcoholism, depression, and he was having suicidal thoughts.
I know that in 2009, he was suspended for 3 months by the USA Swimming Commission after a photograph emerged that showed him smoking marijuana.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know about the DUIs, though. I just heard about the marijuana use. So this makes sense that, if you're struggling with suicidality, depression, alcoholism, that you might have a mental health challenge or a substance use challenge.
Absolutely. After his second DUI, he was checked into the Meadows Mental Health Clinic for 45 days, and he states he ended up having to figure out who he was outside of sports. He struggled with his identity. He knew he was an athlete and a swimmer, but he didn't know who he was as a person. And he had to go through the process of accepting himself as a whole person, a father, a husband, and not just himself as an athlete. He states that he had compartmentalized everything for so long, and he was putting his feelings of depression and self-doubt into a box so he could just do his sport.
Well, I think a lot of athletes do that. I remember when I was playing high school football,
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple of other football players had challenges with their grades. Some of them had behavioral challenges. Some of them had, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of them had some drugs and alcohol issues in high school. Maybe not to the level that Michael Phelps did, but that seems common that athletes compartmentalize sometimes.
Right, they can't take it onto the field with them, so they have to put it in a box and kind of put those feelings aside so that they can perform to the degree that they need to perform, because they feel like they're letting their team down and their fans down. Well, he started, after he got help at the Meadows Mental Health Clinic, he started working with counselors, and he actually is pretty active on Talkspace, and he actually has picked up a tool off Talkspace called permission slips, and they are a tool that allows you to give yourself permission to prioritize your own mental health, and it's whatever means to you. So you fill out this little form, and it says I give myself permission to, and then like one of the things that he said that he advocates that it's okay to not be okay. So it'd be like giving yourself permission to not be okay.
There's a famous book that came out called I'm Okay and You're Okay. But there's another book that came out kind of like, that was tongue-in-cheek, I'm not okay and you're not okay, and that's okay.
I like that.
Honestly, every one of us sometimes are not okay.
Right.
And it's all right to be not okay if you're taking the right steps to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And my next example is a great example of somebody who was able to say, I'm not okay, and take care of themselves. And that's Simone Biles.
Wow, I love Simone Biles. If you ever watch her floor routines, it almost seems unnatural how good she is. Just some of her moves and her abilities. And she just looks like she's one giant muscle, just really fit, really strong, really beautiful, really graceful. One of my favorite athletes.
Well, she is the most accomplished gymnast of our time, and she has a total of 32 Olympic and world medals combined.
Wow.
And at the Olympic 2020 Games, she encountered a case of the twisties, which, if you've never heard of the twisties, it's when they lose their air balance and it impairs their ability to spatially know where they are when they're in the air.
Wow.
And so it can really impair their ability to perform flips like she does. And she does so many flips when she performs. That's really a danger. And it could even lead to her being injured or even killed trying to perform some of these complex, super difficult flips that she does. And she was able to say it's a temporary state. It just happens sometimes. They don't know why, for short periods of time, especially when somebody's feeling anxious. And she experienced it, and first she was able to step back and say, look, I'm going to step back from the team competition so I don't bring my team scores down and they can still do well. And then it continued and persisted, and she stepped back out of the individuals and eventually only performed in the balance beam competition and had stepped back her difficulty level a great degree before she even did that. But she had this self-awareness to say, I'm not okay and I need to step back from this. And she was still there. She still made the choice to be there and be present for her team and be on the sidelines while they performed.
And I know that Simone Biles, first of all, is a great philanthropist too. She has set up programs to help other people become or practice gymnastics. I remember the time when this happened, and I remember some of the rude and irresponsible and, quite frankly, nasty comments that people were making about her. And, you know, we all the therapists that I know were like, she's taking care of herself. She's taking care of her mental health.
Absolutely.
But people were calling her a coward. People were calling her these vile names. She has nothing to prove. 32 Olympic and world medals. Do you think that, like, I don't know if her case for her medals at home is so heavy it probably can't even be on the wall anymore. Who does she have to prove to anybody?
Well, not to mention that she has several moves on several different events that are named after her. She even has, like, in some cases, she has the Biles and the Biles 2 in multiple events. Like in the floor exercise, she has the Biles and then the Biles 2 because they're different moves. And the tradition in gymnastics is to name a move after the person that first performed it. So she's created 2 new moves that nobody's been able to replicate. And then people are disappointed when she comes in and says, hey, my mental health's not in a good place for this.
Right.
And there's a feeling there when you have that and you have this realization of, I'm going to be letting everybody down if I come through and support my mental health. But here's the thing, had she not made that choice, she could have been permanently injured.
Right. And I'm all about, if you've got, performance anxiety and stuff like that, talk to someone, get some help, get your head in the game, get on the field, get in the arena, whatever you need to do. But there's a point when you say, wait, I cannot pull myself up. I cannot, have the stiff upper lip right now. I'm not in a position to do that. And that is 100% acceptable and okay.
Absolutely.
And if we're on the field or off the field or on the court or off the court, if we need to take that time to take care of ourselves and make sure that we're not going to get injured, to make sure that we're prioritizing our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health. Not only that, but Simone was also protecting the health of her team. I think If we're doing those things, then we're doing the right things.
Well, think of all the pressure she was under. She was not only under the pressure of performing at the Olympics, but by that time, people were already calling her the greatest of all time. Like, she even had one of her leotards was embroidered with goat on the back of it because people are calling her the greatest of all time. So that's a lot of pressure to put on one human being to not only go to the Olympics and have the pressure of going to the Olympics and to win the medals and represent the United States, but also to be looked at through the lens of history as it's happening.
Right. I mean, the fact that any of them made it to the Olympics is a huge achievement in and of itself. And the privilege to even be able to represent a country like the United States or China or Russia or Great Britain, Australia, South Africa, Nigeria, any of these countries, it is an honor to be able to do that. And I think that the way that we treat our athletes here in the United States should show the way that we treat our people and the way that we treat one another. And that's one of the reasons why I was so upset at the way people treated Miss Biles in doing what she was doing for herself and for her team, because it was the right thing to do.
Right.
So,
and not to mention that she also has a lot of trauma and things from her youth. She grew up in foster care. She ended up being part of, there was a scandal involving sexual assault of gymnasts by a trainer named Larry Nasser.
oh my gosh.
And she
yeah.
was sexually assaulted by him. And so we have all of this stuff happening and all of this trauma happening that she's, like Michael Phelps did, compartmentalized and not dealt with. And so one of the things that I read about her said that when she first entered counseling, she didn't want to talk because she kept thinking, I'm not crazy, like there's nothing wrong with me, why am I here? And then she was able to start talking about it and start talking about the fact of the feeling she was feeling, the anxious feeling she was feeling, and able to start getting her anxiety treated. And she was actually diagnosed with anxiety, and she has previously diagnosed ADHD. But being a public figure, being in the spotlight under a microscope for so long, and having everything she's done hyper criticized, while also dealing with all the emotional trauma, being bullied in school, sexually assaulted, all that's a lot. And so now she's very big advocate for mental health. She still goes, from what I've read, she still goes to counseling regularly, and she actually journals in order to help manage her anxiety. And she's become a huge poster child for mental health advocates for athletes.
That's amazing. And so even off of the floor, I don't know what you gymnasts call out of the gym for gymnasts, I don't know. Even outside of her athletic element, she's doing a lot of good for people, not only in setting up her charitable organization, but also showing people that it's okay to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's okay to take care of your mental health.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, she said that at that moment when she was at the 2020 Olympics, she was inspired by my number 3 person. My number 3 person is Naomi Osaka. And she has been ranked number 1 in tennis singles by the Women's Tennis Association. And she's a 4-time Grand Slam champion. And in 2021, she ended up withdrawing from the French Open in order to protect her mental health, a move which completely shocked the tennis community and brought a spotlight to mental health for athletes. Her courage was what helped people like Simone Biles come out and say, look, I'm not okay. Because Naomi was able to talk about the fact that she'd been suffering from long bouts of depression since the U.S. Open in 2018.
Wow, it's a long time to be suffering with depression.
Right, and at the time that she withdrew, she was actually ranked number 2 player in the world at that time.
That's incredible.
And she's pretty open. She suffers from social anxiety, and she's been pretty open about it. And she learned to take steps to try to protect her mental health. On top of going to counseling, she's learned to wear headphones at tournaments to kind of dull the senses of all the people around her to try to help that social anxiety. And she, like Simone Biles, uses journaling. And she reports that it helps her keep her thoughts in order and provides clarity.
I think that's pretty amazing. You know, writing and journaling is one of the most underestimated tools that a human being has. I mean, writing about our experiences, going back and reflecting on them, helps us to gain insight. And I think it's really great that Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka have learned that, and they're able to do that for themselves. And it provides great insight for lots of people for lots of different reasons and different conditions, anxiety, depression. I know people with PTSD who do a lot of journaling, and it's very helpful for them.
Absolutely. And so what can athletes do to protect their mental health? First of all, they can talk to someone. There's a great deal of pressure involved in athletics, and having someone you can talk to about your feelings can help. Like Michael Phelps says, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to take a break if you need it. That's what Simone Biles teaches us. And you're not letting anyone down. She was still there to support her team, and now she's helping millions of people with mental health issues that may be involved in athletics realize that it's okay for them to take the breaks that they need and step back. And if you don't have anybody that you feel comfortable talking to in real life, or maybe you just want to talk to somebody more confidentially, there's counseling is always an option. Here at Student Wellbeing, you can give us a call. We can get you set up.
Also, part of it too is I think sometimes athletes are so into what they're doing that sometimes they stuff it, like Michael Phelps did. And so just accepting the fact that, hey, I struggle. Mm-hmm. And that's okay to struggle. That acceptance piece I think is very important, and then to do something about it. Absolutely.
You can use journaling, like was Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka both mentioned journaling, and you can use that to resolve your feelings and gain clarity. Sometimes the act of writing things down can help us see things more clearly, and it can also make us recognize any thought patterns that may be unhealthy. And journaling doesn't always have to be just in written form. You can also keep an art journal. Art journals are exceedingly popular, and there are ways sometimes when we can't find words to say what we're feeling, sometimes we can do it in pictures. Next, pay attention to your sensory needs. Like Naomi Osaka wears headphones at tournaments to dull her overstimulation, you can make sure and honor those sensory needs. Make sure that you've got things available that are comforting and increase your ability to focus. And finally, the one that I say all the time, self-care, self-care, self-care.
It's like a drum with you, self-care, self-care, self-care.
Like I'm going to beat my drum. Self-care, self-care, self-care.
It's a good drum to beat.
I know I emphasize self-care a great deal, but it's truly just as important as eating and drinking when it comes to your mental health.
And eating and drinking is also important to your mental health, so making sure you're doing that.
Absolutely, that survival need.
Especially as an athlete, yes.
But make sure and treat yourself with kindness and give yourself appropriate breaks. Make sure to be aware of feelings of stress and take steps to decrease those feelings. Use some of those self-care techniques like coloring, using Play-Doh, taking walks, watching something funny. Humor actually helps dissipate anxiety, so listening to a funny comedian or watching a funny YouTube video can help with some of those feelings of overwhelm. And taking a hot shower or a hot bath, getting a massage, any of those things can help us feel better. And just like you take care of your muscles after a game, take care of your mind.
Right. Recovery is important for all aspects of our health.
Absolutely.
Well, I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I think this is very helpful to people who are involved in sports, people who want to play sports, whether it's intramural or whether it's any kind of high-functioning activity that requires a high level of skill. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay, thanks, and have a great day. For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com.